Fate has always played bitter games with my 23 female life. I don't remember the faces of my mother and father. All I know is that they ran away just before my first birthday. This is the account that I've heard from my Nana, who herself never believed in it. When my parents left, I was in foster care for a while. I stayed there till one day the authorities were approached by a lady in her 60s. She looked as if she had just returned from her grave. That was my Nana. She was my mother's maternal aunt. She had lived almost all her life disconnected from her family. I called her Nana. Nana looked after me till I was an adult, and then she died. I still believe that Nana is my guardian angel. Nana was a mysterious woman. She never married and lived alone throughout her life. She did not have many friends or acquaintances, but she showered me with love and warmth. It is through her accounts that I came to know about my mother and father. Nana had a special compassion for my mother. She told me that my mother was a very kind young lady. I have not seen any photos of her, but from what my Nana said, I'm a carbon copy of my mother. My parents were unmarried. Both were very young when I was conceived, probably in their late teenage years. One day they called one of their friends to babysit me and told her that they were going out for dinner. But they never came back. It was speculated that they found it impossible to raise a child and hence ran away. But Nana always said that my mother was not a coward to run away like that. But I believe that my parents ran away. As a kid, I had so much anger and hatred towards my parents for deserting me, but as I grew up, it slowly declined. The anger began to be replaced by sympathy for this young couple who were caught up in the complexities of life. At some point, I decided that family life was not for me. I wanted to be like my Nana, so I decided that I wouldn't marry or have a family. Nana was a rich woman, but she never revealed how she made money. I completed my education at an expensive boarding school. Nana never made me feel like I was financially any less than my friends there, who were mostly from well-off families. I never asked her how she made all this money, and she never answered. But I tried to live a normal life. I moved out during my college years and had since then tried to live my life on my own. So this is when things took a turn. I used to work part-time as a waitress in a cafe for a while. There was a gentleman who used to frequently visit the cafe around 5 p.m. every evening. He used to visit the cafe around the same time my shift started. So I started noticing him. He was always well dressed and ordered the same things from the menu. It felt like he never cared about what he ate. He was very vigilant about whatever was happening in the cafe. Watching him during less busy hours became my routine. One day I playfully asked him, "Why do you order coffee if you hate it?" He always took just a few sips of coffee and left it at that. He was taken aback by my comment and then began laughing. "I didn't know that you were watching me closely," he said. We started chatting every day for a few minutes. I was attracted to him. His name was Max, 27, male. He didn't reveal much about himself, just that he was working for the government and was now doing a field project. I felt guilty that my plans to live a long and peaceful life alone were being ruined by myself. But I never had any love interest before this. I had lived a very unromantic life till then. I was not sure whether I would be attracted to someone again, but I decided not to be explicit about my interest in him. A few days later, he asked me for my number. I gave it to him, and we started texting. Within a few weeks, we started going out. I was still very conflicted about dating someone, so I let Max know about my past. I was abandoned as a child. I believed that happiness was easier when you were alone. Max listened to everything earnestly. In return, he shared certain things about himself. I knew that Max worked for a government agency, but the nature of his job was secretive. He had signed an NDA about the nature of his job, so it would be impossible for him to share the nature of his job with me. I was okay with that condition because as long as anything is legal, I have no issues. I let Nana know that I was dating Max. She asked me to be careful. She was curious about Max's whereabouts and asked me to bring him over someday for dinner. I was excited about it. But for the next 3 months, whenever I made plans with Max to go to Nana's place, he skipped it at the last moment. One day, I got a call from Nana's lawyer informing me that she was no more. She was not in poor health but had suffered a cardiac arrest during her sleep. I planned to attend the funeral alone, but Max said that he wanted to come, so we went together. Nana's funeral day changed the course of my life. I was emotionally not in a good space. Max was taking care of the logistics. He was deeply in conversation with Nana's lawyer. After a while, the lawyer approached me with information about her will. My jaw dropped when I learned that Nana had left a 7-figure inheritance for me. My immediate reaction to the lawyer was, I didn't want all this money. I didn't know what to do with all of this. Even the lawyer had no idea how she made all this money. On my way back, I felt emotionally overloaded with so many things. I didn't talk to Max throughout our way back. I knew that I couldn't continue dating with a mindset like this. I suggested that we take a break from seeing each other. He was more than understanding. He promised me that he would be just one call away if I needed anything. I didn't want to take even a single penny from my inheritance, so I asked our lawyer to manage it for me till I make a decision. I was emotionally very vulnerable after Nana's death. I miss my mom and dad. I miss being loved by someone. Pushing Max away did not help me at all. The following days, the days that followed, were horrible. I was grieving Nana's death. Nana was the last person I had in this world. That realization made me feel very lonely. But Max checked on me every day. Though initially I did not appreciate it much, I later realized how his calls were helping me. He made me feel better. He was not expecting anything in return. It had been a while since I had gone out, so one day Max took me out for dinner. We both agreed that it was strictly not a date, but as we spent time together, I realized how secure I felt in his presence. That dinner ended with a long kiss. We started going out together again. Life was going smoother. Max took me to his parents' house a few times. His parents made an adorable couple. I was slowly realizing how happy being a family could make a person. All my life I lived with my Nana and thought living alone was the best. This was the first time I was seeing a family up close, and I started to feel that this was better. I began to trust Max more. He helped me deposit my inheritance in a high-yield savings account. Life was going smoothly. I felt secure. So when Max proposed, I said yes. Today was our wedding day. It was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life, but it has left me questioning all the good things in my life. A few hours before marriage, I got a call from a woman. She didn't say much, but warned me that my life would be in danger if I went through with the marriage. I cut the call immediately. She called again. I asked her who she was. "Mom," she said. That reply cut through me. "You can come outside if you want to meet us." My head said that this was a joke, but my heart wanted me to go check it out. I met a woman and a man outside. The woman looked a bit like me at places. I told them that I couldn't trust someone randomly showing up at my wedding after all these years to claim that they were my parents. I was trembling. The man asked me if I knew where Max worked. He worked for a government agency. I repeated as he said to me. He told me that Max was a con man and I shouldn't trust him. When I refused to believe them, they produced a photo of them with my Nana. I recognized Nana instantly, and by this time I saw my mother-in-law rushing towards me. Without any explanation, she pushed me inside. She asked me if I knew them. I stayed silent. I was processing what had just happened. When I started crying, my mother-in-law hugged and consoled me. She said that it was all right. I told her about the conversation I had outside. She was not surprised at all, and with a straight face she told me that those could be actors. It was common for people to fake kinship when the news of some hefty inheritance leaked. She hugged me close. Max had reached us by then. He supported what his mother said. I did not want to think then. I did not want to spoil my wedding, so I went on with the wedding. But all the while I felt guilty about not conversing more with the man and woman who showed up as my parents. I pushed them away. The woman looked a lot like me as well. But I did not take any effort to check their authenticity. Am I the a-hole for not making any effort to recognize whether the people who turned up at my wedding were the parents I lost years ago? Update 1. I felt weird that Max and his parents kept on asking me whether they contacted me again or not. He asked me to block their contact number as well. He had seen many such cases in his field of work. I blocked the number while we were together, but I was conflicted. So I took the blocked contact list to unblock them and saw that Nana's lawyer's number was also blocked. That looked strange. I called the lawyer first. He told me that he contacted my parents as directed by my Nana before her death. They responded late. I told him what had happened at the wedding. He asked me to call them back soon. This time I was sure that Max was hiding something from me. I called them and they told me to meet for lunch today. We'll update you guys soon. Update 2. Oh God, I never imagined my life would turn this cinematic. My parents were not ready to expand on anything, but from what they said, all the money that I inherited from Nana was blood money. They had so many questions about Max. I realized that I didn't know a whole lot about him as well. Weeks before her death, Nana made her lawyer investigate the whereabouts of my parents. But it took him some time to find them. Nana doubted whether Max was the same person who visited her about a business deal a few months earlier to him meeting me. That man knew a great deal about our family, which scared Nana. I remembered how Nana asked me to send photos of Max, but we both were generally hesitant to get photographed. He always reminded me that his work required a level of anonymity as well. Nana didn't want to panic me, but was worried about what would happen to me after her death. So she arranged for her lawyer. The parents, with the help of the lawyer and a few other resources, investigated Max before showing up at my wedding. From their account, the only sensible conclusion was that Max was staging everything to somehow get hold of my inheritance money. His parents were also in it. I remembered how the lawyer's contact on my phone was blocked. Only Max had access to my phone, so this was him. I'm emotionally devastated but happy at the same time. The last few months of my life have been a roller coaster. I don't think I'll be able to trust anyone anymore. Update 3. 2 weeks later, I am here with my parents far away from Max. They did not even allow me to go back to my apartment to pack my things. My parents told me it won't be safe. I didn't want to risk my life again. I'm not sure what happened to Max. My mother said that he has been taken care of. I don't think I want to know what that means. My father said that it's best not to use the inheritance money that my Nana left me. I'm yet to decide what to do with it, but I feel like my life is slowly attaining some normalcy. At least, that's what I keep telling myself. NTA! Phew! It felt like I was on the edge of my seat by the time I finished your account. You have time after the wedding to investigate more into all this. NTA, but you should definitely get back to them. Only very few people knew about your inheritance. Chances of that news to leak are very low. Even if they are not your parents, I feel like they have some info about your husband that you don't know yet. Next story. I work in an office with a shared kitchen, and I usually bring my lunch from home. Recently, I've noticed that some of my food has been going missing, and I suspected that my coworker might be the culprit. One day, I caught my coworker in the act of eating my sandwich. I confronted them about it, and they claimed that they thought it was theirs and that it was an honest mistake. I didn't believe them because they had been taking my food for weeks and it didn't seem like a coincidence. I told my coworker that I didn't appreciate them taking my food without permission and that it was causing me inconvenience and financial loss. They apologized and promised not to do it again. However, I still felt angry and resentful towards my coworker, and I started avoiding them at work. My other coworkers noticed the tension between us and suggested I should forgive and forget. They said that it was just food and that I shouldn't hold a grudge. Now I'm wondering if I overreacted by confronting my coworker, even though they claimed it was a mistake. So, Reddit AITA for confronting my coworker about eating my food? NTA. If it was an honest mistake, then the coworker would have immediately offered to buy you lunch or do something to otherwise make up for it. Tell your HR and make a paper trail in case the issue escalates. NTA. He tried to pull the "it was an accident" BS. He only apologized because he got caught. If he was doing it for weeks, he would do it forever if he was never confronted. Your coworkers are telling you to forgive and forget, but are they telling the sandwich thief to make up for what he did? A forced apology isn't shit. If he was actually sorry, he'd make it up to you. Next story. I, 27, female, live in a small village in the UK in a terraced house. My property is the only house on the street that's privately rented, as my landlord bought her house from the council a long time ago. Every other house is council owned. I've lived here for about 2 years now. I have a neighbor, Helen, 63, female, who has been a nuisance since I moved in, and apparently the entire time she's lived here. She harasses all of our neighbors about little things like what time they take their bins out, how empty or full their recycling bins are, etc. When I moved in, she made a few comments about how she hates that young persons moved in and how I'm probably going to be a party animal. That's not true. I have a full-time job and I'm studying for a PhD. I don't have time for parties, and I'm rarely home during the week. A few months ago, she complained that she didn't like that a tree in my front garden blocked the light coming into her garden, so I cut the branches short so it wouldn't be an issue. Then she complained they were too short. She complained about the noise from a dinner party I had at New Year's to everyone but me. Since I moved in, she's found something to complain about at least once a week. But my girlfriend moved in with me 6 months ago, and since then, it's been constant, almost daily. Her biggest complaint is that my girlfriend always comes home dirty, and sometimes there's mud on the communal path, which we always clean. My girlfriend is a field archaeologist. Obviously, she gets dirty. No one else minds. I've asked. The final straw came last week. I've had various people over to interview them for my thesis, all men. She told my girlfriend I was cheating on her because I'd had 10 gentlemen callers this week. It was 3 elderly French men. My girlfriend freaked out and we had a massive fight where both of us were confused before we realized. I filed a complaint with our council. Unbeknownst to me, our council has 3 strikes and you're out policy. I was the 3rd complaint. Now she faces the possibility of having to move or be evicted in her 60s. I didn't intend for that to happen. She's been accosting us every time she sees us since. AITA? NTA, people like that have nothing better to do but putting their nose in everyone else's business. Since she's meddled in your relationship, you had every right. And after putting up with it for so long, who knows how many people put up with so much without complaining? You have the right to live in peace. NTA, it wasn't you who got her kicked out. She already had 2 strikes to her name, and yet she didn't change her behavior. At this point, it wasn't you. It would be someone else. Also, you made your complaint to a third party who made the actual decision and decided on the punishment. Once you filed the complaint, it was out of your hands. Of course she will blame you. People like her are masters at not taking responsibility for their own actions. If she didn't want to be evicted when in her 60s, then all she had to do was be civil to her neighbors. Also, unfortunately, I think you're also being made a scapegoat by the council. They probably wanted to get rid of her for years and are using your complaint as their excuse to do so, and are also letting you take the heat for their decision. NTA, she's a busybody who is making it her business when it isn't. She has known about her previous strikes and yet continued with her behavior. She either didn't think the rules applied to her, most likely, or just didn't care to follow them. Her behavior is what has caused this. She has had 2 other opportunities to mind her own business and leave her neighbors alone. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl